welcome to Go Comedy. It's now time for Let's Just Say, give it up for your host, Scotty Myers!
I'm more intimidated right now by the microphone, because I'm not used to the microphone here. How is everybody? My name is Scotty Myers, and I am a resident company member here at Go Comedy. I am an improviser, I'm an actor, and by day I'm the marketing director for Broadway in Detroit. So go buy some tickets. Welcome to Let's Just Say. And this month is Pride Month, and thank you to Natalie for setting up a Pride Month. Great night tonight for you tonight. We've got 10 storytellers that are going to be telling you stories based on the theme of pride or proud, and we are so excited to welcome them all here. Some of them, this is their first time. Others, this is multiple times. They're veterans at doing this, so it's going to be a great night. I am going to kick things off with my own story about pride, if you will, a short story, and I'm wearing my Go Comedy Pride shirt. But so for me, personally, pride has been a very weird thing. I grew up evangelical Christian, which, you know, pride is a deadly sin, and so that had its own things, and then couple onto that the fact that I knew in high school I was gay, but evangelical Christian, so I push it down. So I struggled with pride all my life with that, and I went to Penn State, and at Penn State, I've always been a theater person. Obviously, I'm a theater person here, but I didn't want to major in theater because there were too many gay people, and I was afraid they would turn me gay. Surprise! So I did the next best thing. I love theater, so I minored in theater. I got my bachelor's in telecommunications management, and as a minor, I had to take I took an acting class, acting for non-majors. And one of the things that we had to do in an acting class, we were required to go and see the shows that the graduate students, one of which at that time was Keegan-Michael Key, were performing out on campus. And so I chose to go see a musical called Quilt, which, if you're familiar, anyone who was alive in the 80s is probably familiar with the AIDS quilt. And we all should be familiar with the AIDS quilt because it's so important. But when the AIDS quilt was being made in the 80s, basically they would take people who had passed away from AIDS, and you could make a panel. And their friends, family, relatives would make panels of in commemoration of their lives, and then they'd sew them together into this giant quilt that's known as the AIDS quilt. And the musical Quilt was written about several people who had panels on the AIDS quilt. So I went and saw that, and at the end of that musical, I was leaving with a friend of mine from my evangelical Christian group on campus, and I just broke down crying because I knew after seeing that musical that I was gay. I knew it, I was afraid of it, and she was very warm and lovely to me. Cut to, I moved to Michigan to try to avoid being gay, and moved to Ann Arbor. But after that didn't work out, I moved to Royal Oak. When I finally was like, yes, I'm gay, I'm done with all that, I moved to Royal Oak, and some friends of mine convinced me to do the AIDS walk. And I had never done one before, and I was like, yes, I'm going to do the AIDS walk. And I did AIDS walk Royal Oak for the first time, and at the end of that walk, they had panels from the AIDS quilt, and then they took up like all of Main Street, and they were all laid out. And we got done with the walk, and I walked into the AIDS quilt area, and it hit me. And it was like at that point, that was the first time in my life that I felt proud to be a gay man and to be gay and of who I was. And that's my moment. And I was like, I am proud to be here and to be who I am at that time. Now I'm the marketing director for, we just had 6. Woo! And I'm like, yeah, so it's great. So that's my story. We have 10 more, longer, better stories than mine to share with you tonight. So please, warmly welcome to the stage. Well, actually, let me give you his intro. Foster is our first storyteller tonight. He is from Ann Arbor. He's gay. He's a speech and accent coach and is going to be joining Wayne State University's theater department this fall. His activities, he enjoys mahjong, cross-stitching, and getting his ass eaten. It was a requirement. I wasn't going to do it. Please welcome Foster to the stage.
I'm Foster, moving from rimming to talking about my grandmother. Nuts, man. Yes, so I thought I'd kick things off with a coming out story. So, I'm 18. I've come out to, I did a pretty, what some would consider standard progression, close friends, immediate family, family except for my grandparents. So I decided I'm not just gonna do it. I'm not just gonna be like, I'm gay. I'm going to wait for a proper segue, or look for a proper segue into that conversation. So we go out for breakfast. We go back to their charming apartment on St. Charles Avenue. I'm from New Orleans originally, right? Yeah. And we sit down, and my grandmother, who we called Dandy, by the way, so that could have been a segue. That would have been wonderful. She says, now Foster, picture her. She's straight up Olympia Dukakis as Clary in Steel Magnolias, Southern debutante, white coiffed hair. Picture. And then she says, Foster, your grandfather and I were talking the other day, and we decided that of our 5 grandchildren, we know you the least. And I was like, shit. Shit. I'm not going to ask for a better segue than that. So I said, okay, Dandy, let's kick things off. I'm gay. And she says, now, in my day, that word meant something different. Are you saying that you're happy? Or, and I said, I'm gesture. I am a homosexual. She goes, well. So then she launches into a 20-minute story about her cousin T. I love Southern names. Cousin T, who stayed out all night and drank to excess and wrecked her Model T. Cousin T wrecked her Model T and into a tree, and just this story of a very wild but kind of tragic life. And she sees my face and she goes, oh, well, I'm not saying you're gonna do that. I love you. We love you so much. So that went well. And as a result, it did bring us closer up until the day she passed. And we know with coming out stories, sometimes they go like this, sometimes they do not go like this. But I think the moral of this story is that, coming out, this brave act, this thing you do to bring yourself closer to somebody else, do it, because you might find out you have a wild lesbian cousin you never knew about that wrecked trees into cars and lived a wild life. Thank you. She is the director of Transgender Michigan, the founder
the founder
Yes.
of International Trans Day of Visibility, y'all. International activist and a psychotherapist. Please welcome Rachel to the stage. This is her first time.
Hello, everyone! I'm Rachel! And this is a story about a coming out that did not go well. I was 8 years old. And I knew that I was born in the wrong body. I knew I was actually a girl. So, at age 8, I tried to come out to my mom and dad. How do you think that went? They said that that was the dirtiest thing I could ever say. Yeah. Well, that was pretty heavy for an 8-year-old. Plus, I felt like I was God's one mistake. Has anyone ever felt that way? Oh, I really did. And that's how I grew up. So when my parents had that reaction, I went in the closet for 25 years. Long time. When I came out in my 30s, I lost my job. Boo! Boo! And I didn't know what I was going to do. So I got an idea. Why don't I create an organization? Why don't I create an organization so what happened to me won't have to happen to anyone else? So I called up the woman who is now my wife, and I babbled on for like an hour. And that's it. And I had one question. I said, "Are you in?" And she had the bad judgment to say, yes! And that's how it all started for me. Hey, want to hear a joke that was written by a professional comedian?
Yeah.
Yes? Yes. So do I. No. Does anybody have one? No. You know that you're a real woman when you yell at yourself for leaving the toilet seat out. He gave that to me, and I'm real happy I didn't have to pay for that one. Yesterday I was honored by the Detroit Tigers. by a sports team. It's really weird. I can't even throw a ball. I don't even know what one looks like. Well, I used to have a couple of them. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for laughing.
Keep it going for Rachel. Please welcome another first-timer tonight. Her name is Natalie. She is a teacher and a mother. Please welcome Natalie to the stage.
So, I'm a pandemic queer baby. Anybody else's eggs cracked during the pandemic? I mean, it was the time to do it. I mean, you know, we were just sitting at home, watching Tiger King. I mean, not Cindy Joe Exotic brought this up. It was actually a Facebook post that I viewed from a former student who came out as gender fluid. And he still had the beard, and he talked about using pronouns they, them, now, and also wearing a skirt. And I don't know, something in me just got me questioning my own gender at that point. You see, I never really fit in much as a guy. I remember back in high school watching Mulan. I know this is probably a fact, you know, other queer stories too. Watching Mulan, and you know, when she sang, "When will that reflection I see really show who I am inside?" I felt that. And of course, like a lot of other stories, I kind of buried that deep down inside for a long time. But there I was in 2020, the summer of 2020 in the pandemic, and I started to do some re-examining of my life. I looked into some things, and of course what you do, did that, went onto Facebook, joined a lot of groups, right? And just asked, like, you know, I still am mostly attracted to women, but, you know, I know that there's something else, you know, what am I? And so, of course, people were gentle with me, and they said, you know, maybe non-binary, looking at that, maybe demi-boy, maybe trans-feminine, and I thought trans-feminine, no way. But non-binary and demi-boy seemed to fit. So I told my partner, and she was accepting. I quickly changed the subject. But when I told my kids, they were 8 and 6 at the time, I believe. When I told my kids, I kind of framed it like this. I said, you know how Maui from Moana, he sings that song about being just an ordinary demi-guy. Well, you know, kind of like that. Not to say that I'm a god or anything, or part god, but I mean, I'd like a little bit more respect around the house, of course. But I'm two things, really. You know, I was feeling mostly guy at that time, but then also something else. And they accepted me right away. They've been my biggest cheerleaders through the whole thing. Well, I had to decide when I went back to school in person, because at the time I was asynchronous. So I could try lots of different looks. I never had to turn my camera on. You know, got to work on makeup and see what was right for me. But then I had to decide when it came time to go back to school, you know, would I be out? Could I be out? And, you know, would I tell my story or not? Well, that kind of got decided for me. So there was a lady who took a couple of my profile pictures from Facebook, and she put them on a community uncensored page. Okay, I hope yours doesn't have a most horrible. And she said, "Is it true that this person teaches at the high school?" yeah, as if to say, like, how dare they, right? You know, here I am, it's in the midst of, you know, a historic meltdown. I'm trying to get her kid to stay learning, and, you know, she's worried about my eyeshadow. So my friends found it before I did, and they told me, I'm so sorry, you know, don't look and everything. And, you know, I had spent 20 years at that point being a teacher at the same school, the same district, and I thought, you know, I'm not going to let some lady just start talking about me and not do anything about it. So I popped on, and when I did, I was so pleasantly surprised. By that point, there had been hundreds of comments in my favor. A lot of former students whom I hadn't seen in years chimed in and talked about how much their class meant to them. Talked about how my tattoos and piercings kind of made them feel like school maybe was a place for everybody. And even more so than that, though, I was shocked by the amount of people who didn't know me, who put their name down. It wasn't just a like or a heart or a care react. They put their name down as saying, you know what, we need to support this person. I want to see more people like this in education. And so I was blown away. It really showed me that I can't continue to be a bystander. And I can't just think like, well, they're probably fine. They've got it covered. So you better believe that when I went back to school that fall, I was out. Of course, by that time, I had been featured in the local media. It happened to be June, so it was perfect. And I was also featured in George Takei's newsfeed. Oh my. And I was on an international site. I was actually above Demi Lovato in one of their placements on their website. So I did a screenshot of that for my students. So when I went back, I told them my story, if they hadn't heard it already. And they were very supportive. And really, it was because of their support that a year later, I could finish my first year as Ms. Popovich, and I seriously was not misgendered once, which, I mean, is amazing. You know, like the high school years are not the best. People who had me the year before, just flipped that switch, just like nothing. People who didn't have me were very accepting as well. And so when I told my kids that I wanted to start going by Natalie, sometimes they call me Daddly. It's kind of weird coming up tomorrow, you know, like Father's Day, or kind of like maternal life giver's day. But when I told my kids, my 8-year-old, my oldest, came and gave me a big hug, started crying, and asked if we might stop calling them Sadie and start calling them Max. So, just the coming out can be huge for everyone. Obviously, we said, like, this is the family to do it in, of course, right? Of course we're going to accept you. A little bit later, they started using he, him pronouns. My youngest, who's now 8, is also came out as non-binary. And they are, every time in 2nd grade, they're kind of like, you know, it's like, boys line up in this line, girls line up in this one, they're like, So they are challenging the system in 2nd grade. I mean, by the time they get up there. So all this is to say that we went through a historic pandemic. We had to re-examine everything about work, about school, because things just weren't working the way that they used to. And I think we were in such a rush to get back to normal that I see a lot of that in the anti-trans push right now. There's that idea of getting back to normal, and that being trans is not normal. But I'm just asking, you know, the people that are, you know, near and dear to me, and everywhere really, to push that boundary of what normal is, or what a family looks like. Somebody like me who is, you know, in midlife coming out, you really show the world that, you know, you can do anything, and it's never too late to be who you truly are. So, when will that girl I see staring back at me be the one who I truly am? I think now.
Truth. Mulan is one of my favorite Disney shows, and I am waiting for the Mulan the musical to come out one day. If Disney ever returns my letters. All right, please welcome a veteran of Let's Just Say. He is Go Comedy's music director. This is his 3rd time at Let's Just Say, and he is doing something that all good actors do. He's gonna get vulnerable tonight. Please give it up and support Jeremy.
Thank you, Scotty. Yeah, I am going to get very vulnerable here. This is a story I've never told anyone. And there's a couple things we need to know going into this. One, this story does not resolve happy. And so I'm going to leave you with a positive message. 2, this is actually the antithesis of pride we're talking about, which is shame. And it also, toward the end, gets wildly uncomfortable. Now, before we start, I want to give you 2 statistics. 1, in 2018, the National Eating Disorder Association found that 40% of those with binging and purging disorders were gay men. To put this into perspective, the population of gay men at the time of the United States was 5%. 2, an Australian university did a study that gay men from the ages of 18 to 24 who were logging in to hookup apps such as Jack'd, Scruff, Grindr for the first time, 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 would experience some sort of fat or femme shaming. In 2015, I met a guy, and his name will not be said, as you'll see. And I said, okay, we have a lot in common. He seems very sweet. So we decided that we were going to meet. And immediately, I went into this with the wrong mind frame. I said, I'm going to be funny and charming. Why? Because I'm a big guy. And he was athletic. He swims, he runs, that sort of thing. So we meet, and it goes great. The date is wonderful. I'm putting on the charm. I'm telling as many jokes as I can. And it goes so well that at the end of the night, he gives me a hug and a kiss, and we decide that we're going to do it again. Now, I had yet to move into my apartment. I was in Wyandotte at the time. I still lived with my folks, and I wouldn't move until later in the year. He lives in Ann Arbor, so we decided that we were going to spend time at his place, totally fine. So the night that I went out there, we were eating dinner. Everything was great. I went home. We scheduled again. The next night I went out there, he made dinner, and he said something interesting. He said, let's not have seconds. I didn't want them. We sat on the couch. We listened to some music, we played Smash Brothers, and then I went home. Again, the next time I went out there, we went out to dinner, and he said something along the lines of, let's not get dessert. I didn't want it. When we went back home and we were on his couch, I decided to see if maybe there was some intimacy there. So he was laying on top of me, and I cuddled with him a little bit, and he pulled away. And I said, okay, that's fine. He's not in the mood, whatever. It's time for me to go home. And little by little, this seed got implanted in my brain. And I knew what was going on, because the next time we went out to a movie, and it was, let's not get popcorn. I love popcorn. We would go back home. We would lay on the couch. Again, I would try to be intimate. And he'd pull away. And soon this seed became a plant, became a voice that said, you know exactly what is happening right now. Get out. Now there's one thing you should know. The year prior, 2014, I was in a long distance relationship with a guy that I was in love with. And he broke my heart. And so I told myself that this was a chance to find love again, because the person that I was, how I looked, that was never going to happen to me ever again. So I need to be thankful that someone is paying attention to me, even if it means that they are insulting me, that they are trying to mold me to be this person that I don't know if I can even be. So one night, we were on the couch. And I wasn't even going to try at this point. He grabbed my stomach and he shook it. And he laughed. And I said to myself, okay. I laughed it off. I went home. And I was having an out-of-body experience where that voice was yelling at me saying, you would never do this to anyone. Why the fuck are you putting up with it right now? And I said, I'm doing this because he cares. About 9 weeks in, he texts me. And he says, when we get together next, you're going to run. I'm going to weigh you. I'm going to take your BMI and your measurements. And if I find that you are making some sort of progress, I will be intimate with you. I'm screaming to myself in the back of the head, what the fuck are you doing? But instead, all I said was okay. And before this illustrious training regimen could even start, he texted me and said, I'm sorry, I cannot make it work with you. You are too big. That, I learned, is abuse. So I want to leave you with this. This is a lesson that I'm still learning to this day, and maybe lifelong. But I have experienced this, and I will tell you right now, no one in this room is too short, too fat, too butch, too femme, too anything to find love. And love does not come with any sort of condition, any sort of rules, any sort of read between the lines. Love is love. And I guarantee you that everyone in here has it, because the first thing that you need to do when you get home is look in the mirror, because that person 100% will love you no matter what. Remember that. I love you very much. Love yourself. Happy Pride.
What did you say about short? I love you, Jeremy. That was fantastic. This is a lesson in why we say, as acting and theater teachers, it is so powerful to allow yourself to be vulnerable, because in that vulnerability, there is something that all of us feel. And he brought it to the stage. Awesome. Yeah. Please, we are going to change gears. Please welcome. She loves soccer, dancing, music. She's the mom of a gay, bi, straight, and trans kids. This is her first time and she wants to be known as everyone's cool gay aunt. Please welcome Stephanie to the stage.
Happy Pride. My name is Stephanie and I'm a transgender woman. 5 years ago, I had never said that to anyone else in the whole world. I knew it was time for me to come out, and I knew it was time for me to start transitioning. But I really wasn't feeling the whole concept of pride. Pride means so many things to so many of us, and in all kinds of different ways. It's community building, and it's solidarity, and it's creating safe spaces, and it's visibility, and it's that last one that horrified me the most. I knew I wanted to transition, but the only thing I wanted anyone to notice was that I had a different name now. I appreciated and I loved all the transgender women in my life who were visible, who were out there in public and making it look like it was safe, that people could find a positive path. I did not want to be that trans woman. I just wanted to be as invisible as I possibly could, go about my way, and be who I am. This is the story of how very, very badly I failed at that. My first failure came on my first day. My first time trying to come out to other trans women. I had gone through the coming out to my immediate family, and I'd talked to my kids. I'd been to the doctor, I'd seen therapists, I'd been to the pharmacist, and I got the little pills that would be the start of my hormone replacement therapy journey. I didn't ask anyone else if it was okay for me to start transitioning. This was my time, this was my decision, and something I was doing for myself. But on that Saturday morning, as I stood there in my kitchen with those 2 little pills in my hand, I thought, this doesn't make sense. This isn't me. This is too alone, right? Somebody needs to be part of this with me. And I thought, I'm on Twitter. I have 161, not bragging, Twitter followers. But 6 of them were transgender. The transgender women who in so many ways had been my role models. So I thought, I'll come out to them. I don't want to bother by sending a direct message or anything like that. But here's what I'll do. I have these pills in my hand. I have my new cell phone in this hand. Take a picture of the pills. And I did. I took a picture of the pills in my hand. I put it on my Twitter with nothing more than the words, "Here goes." And I took my first dose, and I set down my phone, and I went about my day. 161 followers. I came home later hoping that one of the trans women who follows me would have said something, maybe sent a DM. And they did, all of them. And so did all my friends. And so did some of my neighbors. And my coworkers. Also, that was the moment I remembered, I have family on Twitter too. 4 days later, 160 of them had congratulated me personally. Number 161 took until Thursday. I said, John, how on earth do you even know what that means? He said, I didn't. But your new phone is so good that I could zoom in and see the little code on the pills, and I Googled it. I was mortified. It's funny in hindsight, but I did not do a good job of being invisible. My second failure came when I tried to come out to family and friends. And one of those people that you're close enough with, you should talk to them individually. You should have a one-on-one conversation. They shouldn't just find out via a Facebook post. And so I started. And I talked to some family members and my favorite cousins. And I talked to a few very close friends. And it went well. I put them in a private Facebook group, very secret, very secure. But as soon as I came out to someone, I would put them in this Facebook group and add them to the growing list of people who knew the real me, who knew who I was and knew what my journey looked like. And they were wonderful, every one of them. I got so much support, the love, the caring, kindness that I felt was amazing. And I was overwhelmed. That might also have been in part the estrogen. But one Saturday morning, I was feeling so grateful for all of them. And so I wrote a post. I wrote, "Thank you. This journey was scary. I didn't want to have any kind of visibility. I didn't even know if anyone would accept me. But you did, and you've been there, and you've supported me, and you've loved me, and it means the world to me. I'm overwhelmed. I love each and every one of you. Thank you." And I put post, and I set my phone down, and I went about my day. An hour later, I got a telephone call from my ex-wife. It's fine. We're close. We're good friends, and we're on very good terms. But she phoned me. That's unusual. And she said, "Hey, Stephanie, I read your post. I'm glad you did." She said, "Did you mean to put that on your Facebook main?" Oh. It had 200 views by then. I was mortified. It's funny in hindsight, but I did not do a good job of remaining invisible. My third failure came when I started coming out to coworkers. I too was a pandemic trans, so my egg cracked during the I actually started transitioning in December 2019, but we all got sent home to work from home during the lockdown before I had a chance to come out to any of my coworkers. So when I did, I finally got the chance to just be low-key, to be minimum visibility, to say, "Hey everyone, no big deal, I just have a new name, there's some new pronouns that go with it, this is me, just wanted to let you know." And they were very kind, and it didn't really make a huge fuss. One of them, even from our LGBTQ Employee Resource Network, even reached out to me and said, "Listen, we're making an effort to make our workplace more inclusive, to make it more welcoming and safer for people to come out and be their authentic selves at work. I just wonder if you could be part of a little panel we're putting together, just a few of you. We'll have it facilitated by one of our senior executives, and really have some dialogue about how we can do better here." I said, "Yeah, that's fine." None of my coworkers had ever seen me. And I said, "Fine, that's fine. I'll go on camera with 5 people, that's fine." What I didn't understand is this was a panel discussion in front of 400 of my coworkers, all of whom would be watching it live on video. It was fantastic, it was productive, it was helpful, it was supportive. It was not a good approach to being invisible. Within a few months, the hormones kicked in. The magic pills began doing their magic. And one morning, I woke up and I looked in the mirror and I saw myself. Not my old self, not the boy I was made from, myself. And I had the magical experience of looking in the mirror, of seeing my own reflection and saying, "Hello, it's nice to meet you. And I'm really excited to get to know you." And it was at that point that I started to realize it's okay to be visible. As my authentic self, as who I am, as the person that I was born to be and meant to be, I don't mind being visible. And at that point I realized that's kind of what makes Pride complete for me. I'm Stephanie, I'm a transgender woman. Happy Pride.
Our next storyteller spent 20 years in Colorado, then returned to Michigan. Better judgment? They have spent 7 months doing stand-up in Detroit, and this is their 3rd time here. Please welcome Finn.
Hello. Hi. Hi. That's helpful. This is Jen. So last year, I attended my very first Pride event, right here in Ferndale. And if you had told me then that a year later I would be back in Ferndale performing at a live storytelling event, I would have told you that you were out of your mind. For me, doing this is absolutely terrifying. But here we are. And this past year has actually been extremely transformative for me in many, many ways. But don't get me wrong, I have always very much been this situation. That is not a new development. It was quite evident in preschool that I was not like the other girls. And I was shamed for it, big time. I was shamed by my parents, I was shamed by my peers, and I was shamed by society in general. And I absolutely internalized that shame. The shame I felt wrapped itself around my heart and started to squeeze. The shame I had internalized made it difficult to breathe, and it made me not want to exist anymore. And the message was loud and clear that who or what I was wrong. That it was something I needed to be afraid of and something I needed to try and hide. But my whole life, I've really wanted nothing more than to just blend in and be like everybody else. But despite my best efforts, I have never been very good at hiding the ways that I'm different. And the only thing I actually ever really succeeded at was denying the very obvious truth about what I am to myself. And this caused me to be in a great deal of pain. I have always hated feeling different and being othered. When I was a kid, I felt othered every single time someone asked me if I was a boy or a girl, which was often. And as an adult, I still face this same question. But now, it honestly feels more like a statement than a question. It's a declaration that I do not fit neatly into the girl category. I also feel othered these days every single time someone assumes that I'm a lesbian, which is fair. Honestly, if I saw myself walking down the street, yeah, I would assume I was a lesbian also. I would. But the thing is, I am not now, nor have I ever been, attracted to women. And I am not an expert, but I am fairly certain that this disqualifies me completely. I have been othered in straight spaces and in queer spaces, which honestly feels like quite the achievement. And the experiences I've had of feeling different and feeling like an other have really only deeply intensified the shame I have always felt about who I am. What felt most impactful to me about attending my very first Pride event last year was how much I just blended into the crowd and didn't seem to stand out in any notable way at all. I just felt like a person with permission to exist, like everybody else. And I didn't get the questioning, prying, or judgmental stares that I have grown so accustomed to. I have grown tired of who I am feeling more like a festering wound than an identity. I'm tired of running from who I am. I'm tired of being afraid of it and feeling like I need to try and hide it. I'm tired of describing myself by what I'm not. Not a boy and not a lesbian, rather than just saying what I am. However, I know full well the hate, vitriol, and even violence that people like me face every single day, just for being who they are. Almost 8 months ago, I started doing stand-up comedy. And it was definitely not my idea. Someone else put me up to it. And I thought the concept seemed completely terrifying and scary and insane. But I desperately needed a creative outlet. And I cannot draw or sing to save my life. And after my first set did not go horribly, like I had really hoped it would. I really did. Deep down, I felt like I had to keep doing it. Like it wasn't up to me anymore. And even though it's absolutely terrifying for me to step on stage, I keep doing it. And a friend of mine asked me recently why I do stand-up comedy. And my answer to that has always been the same: for representation. And she then asked me if perhaps there was another reason that I do it that goes much deeper. And after I thought about it, I realized that by forcing myself to step on stage, it forces me to face my fear of being seen. And by getting people to laugh with me instead of at me about some of the absurd and even painful life experiences I've had due to navigating the world as this situation has actually been healing for me in ways I hadn't yet realized. Performing stand-up comedy has slowly started to heal that festering wound I have always felt about who I am. And I can say that at the very least, it has planted a seed for me to stop viewing the ways that I am different with a sense of shame, and to start experiencing them as a source of pride. Thank you.
When I was starting this and I was telling my story, this was standing here and I was like, oh my God, what do I do about this? Like this stand just here. Thank you for just doing this. I can pick up the thing and move it. Awesome. Please, our next storyteller is an improviser. She is going to be in the Planet Ant show, well, fuck me, I guess, that opens tomorrow night. She's a soccer fan and an animal lover and D&D, too. This is her first time. Please welcome Kate.
I am no stranger to the stage, and I am incredibly nervous right now, so bear with me here. So, normally when I'm on the stage, I'm not me, right? I'm a character, I'm an actor, I'm whatever I want to be that day, and right now I'm Kate, and I'm fucking terrified. So we'll just get going with it. I grew up in rural, small town Kentucky, and I will let you make of that what you will. There were 2 lesbians in town. One was my teacher, and their daughter was my best friend, so the gay agenda was pushed on me early. So really, my family has always been welcoming and allies and a very good place to be, right? And it was kind of maybe when I hit about the 7th grade that I realized I like women too. And the 2 was a big, scary part to me, right? Because, you know, you're already in middle school and you're fucking experiencing all sorts of hormones, right? And then you realize that there's more to it. You realize that there's boys and girls. And that was weird to me, and I'm a little bit older than I look. Bisexuality wasn't really a thing in the media at that time. And I remember, because being back then, the internet was still, you know, cool thing. I talked to my internet friends, and I learned about what bisexual was. And I was like, that fits me. So I went and I updated my MySpace profile, as any sensible. And I was absolutely terrified. But I did it, you know, I was in middle school. Who's gonna see it? Definitely not my mom. Guess who came barging into my room? She was mad that I used fuck multiple times in my profile. She didn't say anything else. That was what she was mad about. And I told her I'd change it. I never fucking did, of course. But I remember that was kind of my first, like, okay, my family's, either she didn't read or she's okay. And I was okay with that. And then I got into high school. And this was a time, like, mid-2000s. I'm sure everybody has heard, you know, no homo, right? That was big. And I was a theater kid, so, you know, I'm surrounded by gays, frankly. But it was always gay men. You don't really see it very common, at least not where I grew up, to see a gay woman. And so it was weird. And there was one of our mentors, he graduated from the high school. And he came back to help out with us. He was a gay man and young adult. And he told me one day, just in passing, I wasn't out really to anybody. You know, MySpace was gone by then, so nobody read it. And he just said, as a random comment, in a random conversation, bisexuals aren't real. You're either gay or straight. Make up your mind, stop being greedy. And I remembered that. And I hid that. I internalized it. And I thought, well, maybe I am not real. Maybe this isn't a real thing. And I continued my high school career as a straight girl. All my friends, you know, I dated boys. Nobody knew anything. And that continued up until maybe about 5 years ago. And I was dating a guy at the time, and we were both soccer fans. And he said, you know, why don't we check out this soccer team in town called Detroit City FC? And it just so happened to be June. So we go to this soccer match and we sit on the less crowded side of the stadium, and I look across the pitch and I see flags and banners spread across the entirety of the stadium. And they're not just, you know, normal things. I mean, there was a lot of profanity involved in them if you're familiar with the Northern Guard, but there was something else. There was a lot of rainbows. There was a lot of pride. And kickoff started, and they lit these smoke grenades, and it made a rainbow across the stands. Each one was a different color. And I started crying, and he looked at me like I was crazy. I said, these are my people. And the next match, we were over on that side of the stadium. I sure as hell will tell you that. And that was 2016. And here we are. I've met amazing people like Stephanie. I met my current partner, who of course is a man. And I've met people who have changed my life. I've met people who have made me realize that it's safe to be who I am. That who I am is not somebody to be pushed aside. I am valid, and I am proud. Thank you.
whose apparent extra hobby is breaking microphones. So, just kidding, it happens. Cool. Please, our next. I have a cheat sheet because I can't remember all of this. I'm an improviser. I'm not an actor. Our next storyteller. This is his first time with us. He's a writer, a photographer, and he's owned by 3 cats. Please give it up for Jules.
Alright, I'm Jules. This is my first time doing this. I've been on stage since 4th grade, and when I was in Thanksgiving playing, that was a complete disaster. But, think of a story to tell, and I decided to pick a very personal story about a Pride event I went to in 2011. There's many things that happened in this. It was July 15th, 2011. I just got off the plane. I was actually attending the San Diego Pride Festival, and I was excited and nervous for multiple reasons. This was the first time I had been to California since I was a baby. It was the first major Pride event I'd ever been to, and I was staying with family I did not know. It wasn't just any family, it actually happened to be my big brother, George. And this was my first time meeting him as an adult. We met once in the past when I was only maybe a year and a half, and my mom taking me out there to visit her sister, and we hadn't seen each other since we were raised thinking we were cousins. So, a little backstory is my family's from the Philippines. My mom had my brother was a teen, and my aunt was moving to the U.S. and adopted him so she could finish school and give him a better life at the same time. Met my dad, got married, came here, had me, and then they split up when I was like 6. And when I was about 14 or 15, my dad decided to tell me that I had an older half-brother and that he was living at. So after that, I got in touch with my aunt, who raised him, and stayed in contact with her, and they hadn't told him the truth yet. He knew he was adopted, he just didn't know who in the family was his mom. So to know that I was willing to have a relationship with him, I started sending cards for his birthday, so he knew he could reach out to me. So, 14 years later, in 2011, after one of my last cards, I had my social media info in there, and he added me on Facebook. We started to get to know each other, like each other's posts, comment on things. And then, early that summer, I got an invitation to his wedding that fall. And of course I wanted to go, but we hadn't met before, and it thought it'd be awkward for me to just show up to the wedding and meet my big brother for the first time. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, why don't I come out for a weekend before the wedding so we can have a chance to get to know each other without, and spend some time together. I knew that San Diego Pride was coming in the middle of July, and I suggested that weekend. He knew I was at the time gay, now because of social media, and he was open to it. So I went ahead and flew out there. When I got off the plane, I was nervous. I had no idea what to expect. I saw him as soon as I came down to the baggage claim area, waiting for me. We hugged right away. And we clicked right away. Like we were like 2 peas in a pod. So the next morning, we ended up taking out, but the next morning we went downtown to the Pride Parade with his fiance, got breakfast, and found a good spot, like on the parade route, close by the park where they had the Pride festivities. First of all, I cannot believe how many people were at this event. we're just on one block, and I look down the street, and for miles upon miles, you can see like thousands of people just lined up waiting for this parade to come. I think they said there is over 10,000 people that showed up that weekend just for this parade, this festival alone. And there was a lot of famous people in there. Margaret Cho was in the parade. So she performed that night, and overall an amazing event. It was something really awesome to be at. Another thing that happened with this event is it was actually the very first Pride Parade that gay and lesbian military members were allowed to march in it without being discharged from the military and represent what branch they were in. And something interesting about this was the no ask, no tell policy had been lifted, but was actually put in place before that, but they were still able to participate in it. So I think that kind of added to the positivity and positive energy of the crowd, and just the overall good feeling of being there. So we followed the parade. There was a group carrying a big gay rainbow flag, above their heads on the street. My big brother jumped right in and started carrying it with them. And it was just amazing to be supported by someone I just met for the first time, not knowing anything about them, and being able to be there and seeing such a historic event. He had to go home because he had sudden career finals, but he didn't leave me there to hang out with his friends. And I got to see Margaret Cho perform and have a good time. The next day, we went back to the park because the festival was all weekend long. We went to the zoo because they even had Pride festivals at the San Diego Zoo. And then it was overall just a really good weekend. To meet someone new for the first time, be in such an environment, and be vulnerable for the first time too. So I wanted to tell a story because anyone who knows me knows that I'm a quiet person, I'm shy. Once I get to know you, I will talk your ear off. Give me a few minutes, shut up. But I also wanted to share it too because with everything going on right now, if you hear about historic things coming up in our community, I encourage you to go participate and join. Even if it seems boring or insignificant at the time, I can guarantee that it will make an impact years later and you'll have those memories for the rest of your life. And also, I'm proud of myself for having the guts to go meet somebody on my own, a family member, and just be myself to them, which later ended up me also being a trans baby that I end up too. So, thank you everybody.
Storyteller is also a first-time storyteller tonight. He loves all things Madonna. And my notes say he loves all things Madonna and flea markets. He helps students achieve their goals, which is wonderful, and he is also known as Mike Dog. Please welcome Michael.
I think the theme is nervousness, and I am really nervous, so here we go. I grew up in New England, in a town made famous for a movie called On Golden Pond, and a scandalous tell-all book called Peyton Place that exploited the lives of a small town community. And I think when we think of New England, we think of these quaint hillsides, we think of these covered bridges, and those were definitely part of my reality. But within my family, something else existed. At the age of 14, I discovered that my father was what we called a cross-dresser. And I think that was the term they used. I think trans was nothing, it wasn't a mental health terminology at the time. And so, for me, that was a huge burden to carry. My dad locked himself away from his family. He felt as though he wasn't able to be mentally present, and we didn't really get to know him. And so, you know, I asked him one time, because we have gotten close over the years, where did you feel your lived existence was? And he, you know, he thought about it, and he said it existed somewhere between Grizzly Adams meets Caitlyn Jenner. And I understand that context now. My dad was a machinist. My dad was a mechanic. He could fix anything that was wrong with a car. He built a house from the ground up. He personified every quality that was meant to be masculine. But he desperately wanted to become a woman. And in the 1980s, there were no resources for LGBT, especially individuals who might have identified as trans. And I gotta give a lot of credit to my mom. My mom would go with my dad down to Boston and allow him to explore this side of himself. I can recall my mom telling me a story, and I'm going to channel her voice as I do this. And she was sitting at the bar, and I think my dad was off somewhere, and this drag queen came up and sat next to her. And my mom was like, "Michael, I thought it was B. Arthur." So I have to give a lot of credit, because my mom was really my dad's support system when he didn't have one. After 33 years of marriage, my parents decided to divorce. And till this day, my mom will say, "Your father's my soulmate. I want to, you know, if anything happens to me, Michael, I want to be with your father." My dad went through electrolysis. He went through hormone therapy. He's joined a group a couple of towns over with other individuals who had shared a similar journey with him. And he started to connect with the female side of himself. I think I still had a lot of animosity for my dad, and I didn't feel as though I really had the opportunity to know him. And my best friend and former partner at the time was instrumental in alleviating some of that animosity that I had towards my father. Bob, who had, he was the LGBT coordinator for the University of New Hampshire, where I had attended undergrad. He was responsible for hosting the first trans conference in the state, and my dad was going to be in attendance. And Bob actually met my dad for the first time as a woman before I did. It was, Bob further supported me, and the group that my dad belonged to was hosting an open night where families could come and you know, support their loved one. And he came with me, and that I got to meet my dad for the first time as a woman, and her name was Ellen. And so it really helped heal a lot of wounds that were there. I have learned that pride is not about celebrating who you are. It's about respecting the unique journeys of individuals. This includes invisible people who desperately want to break free from the internal stigma that they believe defines them. My father is now in hospice, and he struggles with the what-ifs of his life. I'm sharing this story to highlight our mutual journey, to find pride in how it has been one that has faced many challenges and struggles along the way. We both are closer as a result of this journey, and I respect him for sharing it with me. Whatever exists beyond the realms of this world, I hope my dad is able to find the ideal sense of self he so deserves. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, this brings us to our last storyteller tonight. But it has been amazing, and it is going to be amazing for this last story. She is a psychiatric nurse practitioner, moonlighting in stand-up, because as you do. She is going to be at the Planet. She is an improviser, a stand-up from Planet Ant. She took stand-up at Planet Ant. And she's going to be performing at 215 West 9 Mile in the stand-up showcase on June 29th. She always gets asked, do you know who you look like? So we'll see if you know who she looks like. Please welcome Silka to the stage.
I've never had Bedminster. I always get
Susan Howard, top of coffee.
all right. That's pretty cool. Tabitha coffee. Oh my God, I'm all right. Sorry, everybody. I'm really freaking nervous. So I haven't brought a cheat sheet on stage. Since I started this stand-up adventure, so thanks for your patience. But at any rate, my name is Silka, and in German it means people will constantly tell you that your name is misspelled. S-I-L-K-E. You mean silky? That's weird. The desolate cultural landscape of my childhood in Toledo, Ohio, made things a bit difficult from the get-go. It was a childhood filled with self-doubt and confusion, you know, the usual stuff on the menu. So I found solace in my local video store. Sure, there was the age-appropriate infantile kids section, but in grade school, I loved staring at titles like, "Don't go in the basement," "Don't go in the house," and "Don't answer the phone." Eventually, my parents entertained my fascination and gave way to my request to throw slumber parties every Friday the 13th. During those slumber parties, me and my girlfriends were scrunched up together on the couch in anticipation of terror. And so it was the special kind of cozy I had yet to understand why I liked it so much. Horror movies were my jam. I apparently got to sleep with a bunch of girls and eat snacks. That's not scary. That sounds like heaven, no matter what Pat Robertson has to say about it. But then, one 8th grade evening, we rented the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And something very special lit up my brain and exploded my pituitary gland like fireworks. Bright, exciting, and dangerous. Lipstick, fishnets, gender bending. I thought, these are my people. Don't dream it. Be it. What an anthem this movie sang to my soul. And after this introduction to liberation, a few of us got a pinch more daring. We were riding our bikes at night. We were shaving our heads. We were skinny dipping. Me and my best friend Ellen became regular skinny dippers a summer night after my parents went to sleep. She was the riffraff to my Frankenfurter. No, seriously, we took photos all dressed up. We were Catholic schoolgirls with a stifled sexuality. I would often risk the chlorine burn to sneak a peek at my best friend with her long blonde hair streaming underwater in the moonlight topless. By freshman year, I, among others, were blissfully unaware of our queerness, but we listened to The Cure and Katie Lang and Tracy Chapman, watched Interview with the Vampire, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. We were voguing our butts off. We just knew something set us apart, but we didn't have the language for it. Now, can you believe that 4 years after high school, I would be married to a man for almost 20 years? I ask that before you think of detours from queerdom, so you can think of the journey. A journey that began at humble Big Boys, over endless cups of coffee, a marathon of conversation, and later accumulated into vows, shared one beautiful October afternoon, only a few months later. Enter Chris Ludos. One of Chris's many great qualities is being a keen listener. And through our 17 years together, there was much to observe, especially in the, I think my wife might be gay part. As an example, I introduced a challenge called The List. During many rounds of darts with friends, I encouraged everyone to list 10 same-sex celebrities or everyday people with whom they'd like to get to third base with. Now, out of nowhere, I surprised myself. I named a secret crush on the 6-foot-tall, built like a footballer, surgical tech who was in my nursing class. I thought about her a lot. She drove a big yellow truck and came from a place called Texas, Ohio. Upon further review, I did the math. Through the years, I kissed all my friends, who were girls, all of them, even when I wasn't drinking. It was confusing. Who the hell was I? It was obvious we had to address the rainbow flag in the room eventually. Ever a phenomenal human being, Chris became my wingman, a provider of lesbian how-to guides and lists, as well as my queer coach. Go on and get out there, kid. He gave me permission to be myself, a selfless and beautiful gift. Polyamory was not in our stars, and Chris knew before I knew. What I needed wasn't a threesome, but a twosome. I'm sorry, my mouth is so dry. A different twosome. He made space for me, even if it meant that that new space would not include him as I did before. And so we separated. But Chris never left me, even when things got messy. He graciously brought me close to the psych hospital when my drinking became a gasoline fire on my lifelong depression. Now, perhaps he took pity on me when my first girlfriend ghosted me while actually in said hospital. He laughed and said, of course, when I told him that upon discharge, I burned everything she ever gave me, and under the light of the full moon, I spent $30 to send 13 pounds of ashes via UPS. For real. Shortly after getting my tender and bruised self together again, I decided to dip a toe into the dating pool, Tinder style. As luck would have it, 3 times as a charm, a loyal and ever wonderful soon-to-be ex-husband a cruddy ex-girlfriend, good riddance, Cleveland. Then, my soon-to-be who. It is August 30th, 2019, dusk. Here I am, swaying in my hammock, swiping my heart out on Tinder, until I beheld the glow of a beautifully handsome face. Immediately, I wanted to kiss every freckle on those cheeks, every freckle. We met not 24 hours later, by a firelight, under the light of a full moon, who sense of being there. Her name was Tina. When she told me a few weeks later I was her first and only Tinder swipe, wow. I knew the universe sent me something very special. On a sleek and sexy Triumph motorcycle, no less. Now, I know this night centers on pride, and let me tell you something. I've never been so proud to be divorced. Have you ever ended something to make it better? I had no idea that being divorced would reform our wedding vows. But Chris is my best friend till death do us part. And so tonight, I wanted to ask a special favor of him. Chris, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind passing the baton. Would you do Tina and I the honor of walking me down the aisle on August 31st, 2024, and hand me off to Tina?
For telling such wonderful stories. That's it for tonight, but let's just say is the second Wednesday, Natalie? Third Wednesday? Third Thursday. I don't know what day it is. It's a day of the week. Third Thursday of the month, and July is Spark.
20th is Spark.
Is Spark?
Storytellers.
We need storytellers, and in August is Wanderlust.
Wanderlust, yep.
Wanderlust, which we've done Wanderlust before, right?
Nope.
No.
You're doing great, Scotty.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Natalie, for helping us. Thank you, storytellers.